I buy my meat from a local farm or farms. If you want to buy animal products from happy, ethically raised animals, you should support your local farmers. These are some of the things that I hear the most often when I have conversations with non-vegans about animal welfare and the ethics of consuming animal products. So in this video, I'm going to be responding to the statement. We'll be focusing on two keywords, local and family owned. So I assume that when you say it, you acknowledge the unethical and inhumane industry practices that are carried out in many or most livestock farms, where it doesn't make sense for you to even bring up this statement in the first place. So let me start by asking you this question. Say you and I agree that a farm that looks like this is unethical. So if I moved next to one of those farms, would the farm be ethical now that it is local to me? So according to the USDA, 98% of the livestock farms in the US are family owned. I'm sure you're thinking that is a surprisingly high number. That is right, because at the same time it shows that more than 99% of livestock animals that are consumed in the US are raised in modern industrial factory farms or concentrated animal feeding operations that look like this, which I'm sure isn't what you would expect when you imagine a family-run farm. Now why is that? We have a specific image in our heads that we assign to the word family. Maybe a family of 4 or 5 living happily with their dogs or cats, and maybe they have chickens wandering around in their backyard. So we apply an image like this to a family-run farm. However, those 98% family-run farms look vastly different from such image. Many of them, which are certified as free-range or cage-free, stock thousands of chickens in a closed environment with no space to move around, without adequate sunlight or fresh air. Many of them live and sleep on their own feces, and they often suffer from serious infections. Their standard practices include debeaking of female chicks, throwing male chicks into a mass shredder alive, cutting off piglets' tails, hitting injured ones to the ground to death, and burning their skin. All of those are industry standard practices. It is true that they're cage-free, so they aren't lying, but this is part of what's called humane-washing. Just like greenwashing by the animal agriculture industry, words like free-range, high welfare, humanely raised, family farmed, or any positive imagery or narrative they use to portray themselves are all common examples of it. It's marketing. It is time to realize that animal welfare is not to protect the animals, but for us to ease our conscience when buying those products from the industry that exploits them, to reduce consumer concerns when buying something that's produced in a way that we would never imagine, or something that would otherwise make many of us feel intrinsically not so good about ourselves. The same goes to the term local. Nowadays, we like to use the word local and buy products that are locally sourced or made. However, this is mainly because of the rising awareness in businesses, brands, and consumers about the negative impact of large amounts of packaging and shipping or transporting of products on the environment in the era of internet shopping. The purpose of supporting local businesses, communities, and economy, etc. Not because doing so can ensure that the products we buy are made ethically. It would make sense for a clothing brand to say that they're not sourced from a developing country where people's labor rights are not protected. But in most cases, it does not enable us to spot or detect unethical business practices, especially in animal farming, which is done in a closed environment. So the problem is, we apply the positive connotation of the word local or locally sourced to something that could not be supported by it. Now, let's go back to the earlier question. If I moved next to a farm that we both agree is unethical, would the farm be ethical now that it is local to me? So, since when does local mean ethical? How does geographic location that is subjective to each individual determine morality? We wouldn't justify local racism, local sexism, or local homophobia. Any injustice just because it is happening locally. Here's some fact. Every farm is local to someone. If that statement could justify our local farms without seeing everything the farmers do to the animals that they hide or the slaughter that the animals go through, we could all say the same thing and we could possibly justify every single farm that exists on this planet and make it all humane and ethical, which again doesn't make sense for you to even bring up this statement either in the first place. Local does not mean ethical. Even when we can see happy animals comfortably wandering around in a farm, we know that they will end up in a slaughterhouse and have their lives taken away for unnecessary reasons. All livestock animals will, unless they escape or get rescued if they're lucky enough. Slaughterhouses are all nearly identical. even if we gave them the happiest life, killed them in the quickest and the most painless way possible, at the end of the day, the exploitation of sentient beings with its purpose itself is unethical. Regardless of how or where it is done, it's totally irrelevant. The animals don't care. Non-human animals should have the right to live free from exploitation and oppression by us. If you care about the animals' well-being, maybe you could do better than coming up with less inhumane ways to exploit them and justifying it, which is not exploiting them. If you want to make ethical choices, you can choose vegan. And by that, I mean causing the least amount of pain, suffering and death, and exploitation of animals if and when you can choose to. That's what veganism is all about. I have made several videos about the core value of veganism and more, so if you'd like to know more about it, I will link them in the description below. Alright, that is it. If you agreed, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video.